everybody. This is Dr. Greg Sloop, and it's time for Live at 5 on this Friday, June the 7th, 2024. Hope you're doing great today and that God has blessed you richly. We are continuing with our look at very famous, well known passages and stories in the Old Testament. We're today over in Genesis chapter 32. We just talked yesterday about the moment where Jacob begins to prepare for his meeting with Esau. He prepares gifts for him, flocks, herds, and he's saying, send these to him, and hopefully he'll be appeased because we all know about how Jacob had sort of mistreated his brother and had taken his birthright and his firstborn blessing and all of those things. So here in this passage today, we're looking at one more time where Jacob has an encounter with God on this road back and forth between Haran and Canaan. And he is in a place called Peniel or Penuel. And he has this encounter with God. Here's how it sets up, starting in verse 22. It says, and he arose that night and took his two wives, his two female servants, and his 11 sons. So he takes his family. His family is with him. They're headed back to the promised land of Canaan, and he puts them all over the ford, the ford of Jabbok, or the crossing of the river Jabbok. And he sends them across the river. He took them, sent them over the brook, across the brook, and sent over what he had with him, all of his flocks and his herds and everything. And then Jacob was left alone. He said, I need a little time. I need a little time to consider what's about to happen. And he was all alone. And it says that a man, this capital M in the New King James Version, because that signifies deity, the divine pronoun or the divine title, a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day or the dawn of the day. So all night long, after he sent his family across the river Jabbok, or across that brook, once he sent them and all of his belongings across, he spent time with God and he wrestled with God until the sun rose. Now, when he saw, that's the man, that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched or struck the socket of his hip. And the socket of Jacob's hip was out of joint as he wrestled with this man, this God. And he said, let me go, for the day breaks. God didn't need to tell Jacob to let him go. If he had wanted to, he could have gotten away anytime he wanted to. But God saw his persistence. God saw his desire. God saw that he needed time with him. So he said to him, I will not let you go unless you bless me. I will not let you go unless you bless me. This is what Jacob was here for. This is why he sent his family across the river and all of his possessions. He said, I just want to be one-on-one with you, God, and I want to get the blessing of God before I face my brother Esau. So he said to Jacob, what is your name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. Now, Jacob was deceiver. Jacob was supplanter, but he says that he's going to be named Israel, and Israel literally means prince of God or prince with God. He said, your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have struggled with God and with men and have prevailed. Now, he struggled with Esau. He prevailed over Esau. He struggled with Laban. He prevailed over Laban. He struggled with God here. He had seen in basically this same place a ladder going to heaven and angels going up and down between heaven and earth. Now he's here in the basically the same general territory, and he's wrestling with God and will not let him go until he gets the blessing. Then Jacob asked, saying, tell me your name, I pray. And he said, why is it that you ask about my name? And he blessed him there. So God didn't reveal his name to Jacob, but Jacob knew that he was wrestling with God. He knew that a deity or someone from another world was wrestling with him, and he touched him on his hip or struck him on his hip. His hip went out of joint and it affected the muscle there. I'm not sure if he put it back in joint, but I do know that it had an effect on him. He said, "Why is it that you ask about my name?" And he blessed him there. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, which literally means face of God. For I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. Just as he crossed over Penuel, which is another spelling, also means face of God, the sun rose on him and he limped on his hip. The reason I say I don't know if it stayed out of joint, I don't know how you could walk if your hip was completely out of joint, but I think it affected a muscle because of what they said about it in the next verse. He limped on his hip. Therefore, to this day, the children of Israel do not eat the muscle that shrank off of any animal that they use for food, which is on the hip socket, because he touched the socket of Jacob's hip in the muscle that shrank. So that muscle shrank. It was not going to be anything that they wanted to partake of in the future, not Jacob's muscle, but the muscle of any animal. They said, we're going to not eat that muscle in honor of Jacob, our forefather, who is now going to be called Israel, and his struggle with God. So, this story today talks about struggling with God, fighting with God, wrestling with God, telling God, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. I think we need to get back to our prayer life, to where we wrestle with God, to where we help him to understand how very much that we need him, how determined we are to receive what God has for us when we need him. I think we need to get serious with our prayer life again. I think sometimes we ask God something and then we either forget that we ask him, or we don't really intercede. We are troubled and we don't really trust God and have that kind of faith. I think we need to get back to wrestling with God, and when we need something from him, telling him specifically what we need and interceding, and, for lack of a better term, wrestling with God until we see God bless us in the way that we need his blessing. Don't give up. Don't give in. Don't quit. Always believe and trust God. But in the moments where you need something, wrestle with God until he blesses you, just like Jacob or Israel did at the ford of Jabbok, in the place that would be called Peniel. It's good to see a lot of you on with us today. I see Gene Goodman, Richard Britt, Mike Davis, um, Laura, Michelle. It's good to see each of you on here with us, and I'm thankful for you. It's always a privilege to talk about the Word of God for this short time period each day. I know there are others of you on here as well, because the number is bigger than the number of names on the screen. Thank you. And if you watch later, day, night, today, tomorrow, whatever time, we're always glad to have you with us. Spend time with God, just like Jacob did. He got a new name and he got the blessing he was seeking for because he struggled with God. He spent time with God. I hope you'll do that as well each day in the Word of God, in prayer, and that you will trust God and believe in God. It'll be the best thing you do all day. Good to see Josh Akers hop on here with us as well. Um, Please know we love each of you. If you're in the area, come by VBS tonight at Kannapolis Church of God. We'll feed you at 5:15. The classes start at 6 o'clock. There's even a class for the adults. Come on by and be a part of VBS at Kannapolis Church of God, and we'd love to see you. I will not be with you tomorrow, so I do want to invite you to church as well on Sunday morning, 9:30 for Sunday school. 10:30 is our main worship service. We got a special guest with us this week, Dr. Randall Paris, dear friend of mine. I've known so many years. He's going to be talking to us just a little bit about his missions project and also preaching the Word of God. I hope you'll be part of it, either live in house at 2211 West A Street, or come right back here and watch us online. Whatever place you are with us, we're glad to have you each and every week. And it's wonderful to be with you every day for Live at 5, Sunday through Friday. We take Saturdays off, so I won't see you tomorrow, but I will see you on Sunday for service at 10:30 and live.